Hey guys, Infamous Neo here. I'm just going to be doing like a quick series, maybe not quick, but a series on drafting. I'm going to go through pretty much every aspect you can on drafting, and hopefully give you some tips, get you a little bit better at the game. First things first, how to get into a draft. It's pretty simple. There's a Play Now button up here. You want to click that, go to Tournaments. Once you've gone into Tournaments, you'll see a list of the available ones, and you'll be able to click here for draft. You see 8-man draft queue right here. Maybe you can't see it so well there, but obviously it says 8-man draft queue here. Click that. Maybe things will be a little bit different. They might change the UI about, but it's going to be more or less the same. And then you click join queue, and you'll be put into a queue with a maximum of 8 players. Once 8 players are in the queue, the draft will start. And once the draft starts, what you basically have to do is imagine you're sat at a virtual table with 8 players in a circle, like around the table, and each player has 3 boosters stacked up in front of them. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening these packs and we're going to be building a deck. But you don't open all of the packs and build a deck. What you do is you open a pack. You have 15 cards. I'll be able to show you in a second, but you have 15 cards in front of you. Each booster contains 15 cards, and you're going to pick one card from that pack. Once you've picked a card, you'll take the remaining 14 cards that are left and pass them to your player on the left, and you'll receive a booster from the player on your right with 14 cards in it. Obviously they've taken a card from that pack and passed the rest to you. So you'll look at the 14 cards you've been given, you'll pick another card, and then you'll have 13 cards left, which you'll pass again to the player on your left. So the aim is to build a deck from these cards you're picking. So each time you're seeing the booster from the person on your right, other than the first time of course, because that's the booster you open. You're seeing the booster from the person on your right, you're taking a card out and you're passing it left. Then once all the cards are gone, you'll have 15 cards, and you'll open up the second booster. Same thing again, you look at all the cards and you take a card, but this time you pass it to your right and you receive from your left. So I'm just going to give you a quick example here. The draft's just about to start. It takes a little bit of time to come up, but shouldn't take too long, and you'll kind of see what I'm getting at here. So yeah, here's the 15 cards you get. You've got 3 uncommons, which are these guys here, and 1 rare or legendary. Legendaries are like super powerful cards most of the time, but they're a little bit harder to come by. So we're in a virtual table now, and there's players all around us, and we've just been opening up our first booster. You see this here, and you say which card is the best card in this pack. You know, we'll get into that a little bit later down the line, but essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be picking a card from this. So we're going to take from this pack, we'll probably take Emberspire Witch. We'll just grab Emberspire Witch for now. And now you've taken that card's added to your pool, and the cards down here are the cards you're going to be building a deck out of. So we've taken a Ruby card here, so we're probably going to be building a Ruby deck, depending on what we're passed. Again, a little bit more complicated stuff we'll get into later. This card is fairly decent for Ruby, and you know, it's not a bad first pick. Here's the second pack for us. So this is the pack from the player who was on our right. They've taken a card from this pack and passed it to us, and now we're allowed to pick a card from it as well. So we need to look here what there is. There's only 1 Ruby card. We've already gone into Ruby, so not really a fan of that. There is this Endbringer who's an Orc, pretty powerful Orc. There's also a Murder, a Gearsmith, a bunch of cool stuff here. So what you want to be doing is you'll take another card from this pack. So we're going to grab Endbringer here. Again, not drafting properly here. We'll get into that later on. But you take the card out, and then you pass those 13 remaining cards to the player on your left. Once that's done, once everyone is done doing that, you'll then receive another pack of cards from the player on your right, this time with 12, because obviously 2 people have now taken cards from it. Actually, no, it'll be 13, wouldn't it? It'll be 13 cards. So this has 13 cards in it. Again, you ask yourself, which is the best card, and you take that card. We're just going to take Goreseeker here, because he's an Orc and he goes with the Endbringer. So yeah, that's basically how the drafting works. I'm going to jump cut now to something else, because I've pretty much shown you what I need to show you here. And that's basically how the draft works in a nutshell. Obviously the second time round we do this, we'll be passing to the right and you'll get cards from your left. So we're nearing the end of our draft now. This is the same draft I was just in, but a little bit later on. We've drafted a fairly decent looking Orc deck, a Blood Ruby Orc deck. You can't really avoid getting these cards that you can't use, cards that aren't in your colours, and cards that, you know, just are bad in general, because as you get to the later half of the packs, the later parts of the packs, you just get kind of bad cards that you don't want to be using really, and no one really wants to be using, which is why they're left for the last picks. You've got, I mean, you can go 3 colours, but currently it's usually best to go 2. You just want to pick 2 colours and stick to them. You can go mono sometimes as well. You can go with 1 colour, but sometimes, well, most of the time, it's best to just go with 2 colours and pick the best cards in those 2 colours for your deck. Once the draft is done, you'll have 45 cards, and you'll be brought into this deck builder here. And what you have to do now is you have to build a deck. There are some filters here, so obviously we know we're in Blood Ruby, so we can click this filter button here and show only the Blood and Ruby cards. We can also show artifacts as well, but we don't really have any we want to use this time, so we'll turn that off as well. And what I like to do is I like to sort by cost, so I can sort of see where my curve is going, and obviously we're playing an aggressive deck as well, so we know we want troops that are in the low end of the mana curve for the most part. So what you want to be doing here, you get like 20 of each resource as well, so you can get pretty much an infinite amount of resources. You just build your deck out of these cards essentially, so you take what you want. We'll grab these guys, and we'll grab those and that. You just click the cards in the top here, and then they'll drop down into the bottom box here. This top box is your pool. These are all the cards you picked during the draft. Obviously we've filtered some of them out, but you won't be taking all of these cards. Essentially, the minimum deck size in the draft is 40 cards, and you don't really want to go above that. You have more cards than that, and you could build a bigger deck, but the best to go with is always the 40 card minimum, simply because there are a lot of bad cards in draft. You're given a random selection of cards, and you don't necessarily want to take all of them into your final deck anyway. Obviously you take some that you don't want, but you don't want to put all of them in your final deck. You have a select amount of cards that are going to win you the game, and a select amount of cards that are good. So the reason for a 40 card deck is that it reduces the number of cards you have to draw in order to get to your good cards, and it reduces the number of cards you're drawing that are going to be maybe not so great. So if you have a 40 card deck, you have a 1 in 40 chance of drawing an amazing super bomb rare card that's going to win you the game. If you have a 50 card deck and some of those cards maybe aren't so good, you're going to have a 1 in 50 chance of drawing that card, which is going to win you the game. So not only does it stop you from having too many bad cards in your deck, you're always going to have some bad cards that you have to play just to fill up the deck space. But the most important thing is getting as many good cards into a smaller deck as possible. So you always want to be going with the 40 card minimum. That's just how it is. It's statistically better, and it's better for winning games for the most part. So once you're done with your deck, let me just finish this off here. Grab a couple more things and bring a Gore Seeker. We'll take the Wrath Seeker as well here. We've gone to 17 here. So we'll take the Blood Orc, because that's pretty good with Orcs. We'll take both of them actually. We won't take Demolition. We're up at 21. We'll take the Inquisition, and we'll take the Blood Crazy Zealot as well. So we're at 23 now. And the reason for that is the standard amount of resources you're going to want to run is about 17. And you know, pretty much you'll be playing 17 every time. But there are times when you want to run 16 or you'll want to run 18. That really depends on what type of deck you're running, what kind of curve it has. Again, much more complicated stuff, but as a basis, if in doubt, go with 17. That's the way you want to do it. And so you look here, we've got quite a few double thresholds early on, but the real meat of the deck is in blood. So I'm actually going to go for 9 blood resources here and 8 ruby resources. We do have a couple of early ruby plays as well, but we're just going to go slightly in favour of blood here, just to make sure we get those blood cards out when we need to. You'll then pick a champion. These will have threshold requirements, so you're going to want to make sure you can use the charge power. Here we're going to go with probably Zarad Venom Scorn, because he's pretty cool. He gives 4 charges, and he gives a troop -1/-1 permanently. And then you click here and you'll click Save Deck. And that'll save your deck, and that'll be your deck locked in. And that'll be the deck you're going to be playing with in your first round. All the rest of the cards will turn off the filters here, but every other card you pick during the draft, which is this top section here, is going to be your reserves. And what reserves are, they're basically your side deck. And between games in a match, you can actually switch out cards. You can switch out cards essentially. You'll be brought back to this deck building screen after the first game in a match, and you can switch cards around, and you can take cards out of your main deck and switch them out for cards in the rest of your reserve pool. So it's kind of hard to explain because we don't really have any cards we'd use, but say you're going up against an artifact deck and you're playing wild. Actually, we'll use Ruby as an example. There's a card in this game called Impudlums. It's a 2/2 troop for 3, and when it comes into play, it destroys an artifact. So if you may not want to run that in your main deck, but if you do have it in your reserves and you're playing against artifacts in the first round, or even the second round, any round really, when you go into your reserves, you can maybe bring in that card because it destroys artifacts and it's a good removal, and you can take out a different card for it, just to help your deck a little bit against what you're going to be playing against. So that's pretty much it for setting up your draft, building a deck. The next video we're going to do is going to be about the bread system essentially, and it's a basic system for picking cards. If you stick to bread, you're probably going to win a fair few games in draft. Certainly going to take the games from the people who don't really know what they're doing. It's a way of picking cards in a draft, so you're going to be left with like a half decent deck essentially. I will be going over that in the next video. So I'm just going to point out a few things for you here. My interview with Corey Jones, if you want to watch that, it's a really informative interview about what's coming up in beta and a few of the other features they have planned, like way off in the future. If you want to watch that, it's a pretty cool bit of information. You're going to be able to find that way. You're going to find that over on this side of the screen. The link to my stream. I'll be streaming Hex pretty much daily. Obviously there'll be off days. Some days I can't make it, but that'll be below in the description. And the link to the next video, the one about bread, will be just down there. So if you want to watch either of those videos, obviously you're more than welcome to. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.